Well, hello and welcome to the Profit Express. I'm Tim Healy, and I'm inviting you to join me each and every Wednesday so you can be prepared to win the battle for business. That's right. So welcome aboard, everybody. Thanks for sharing some of your time with me today. And of course, a big thanks to our good friends and sponsors at Corbett Public Relations, where they've been promoting and protecting businesses and brands just like yours for over 30 years. So do yourself a favor. Visit Bill and his team at CorbettPR.com. That's CorbettPR.com. Welcome aboard, everybody. Now, concussions have long been a part of contact sports and football. And it was the 2015 movie Concussion, starring Will Smith, that shed a lot of light on it, especially in the NFL, kind of exploded the whole topic with that movie Concussion. Now, you might be thinking, well, concussions, the Profit Express, where you going with this one, Tim? Good question. You see, entrepreneurs, what do? They solve problems. Inventors, what do? They solve problems. And that's exactly what today's guest has done. He actually happens to be a third-generation inventor. He's currently a D3 football player, and while he's also doing all of that, he happens to be trying to finish up his degree in economics. His product, very, very interesting. It's called the gator skin. What's a gator skin, you ask? It's essentially, I'm going to do my best to describe it, a balaclava-type, not device, but it's really a covering that goes over the head and under the helmet. And today's guest had invented it. Again, he's a football player. His brother's a football player. Part of the story he's going to get into, okay? And what happened is it's not just something you wear under the helmet, but really it's a lot more than that. He has studies proving, this is going to be very interesting, that his device, the gator skin, can reduce concussions by up to 59%. Think about that, reducing the risks of concussions by 59%. That is absolutely incredible. And it's not often that I say this on the Profit Express, but today's guest, and his name is Hogg, his product, the gator skin, if it does what it says it can do, and he's truly in the startup phase of all this, which makes it very, very exciting. If it does what it says it can do, it can literally revolutionize football. It can revolutionize sports equipment. Think about that. That is and again, this is from the Profit Express, a rather bold prediction. So it's a pleasure to welcome aboard the Profit Express, third-generation inventor, D3 football player, and still studying for his degree in economics, Hogg. Carter, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing really well, and it's interesting. You know, I've had a number of inventors on the show. I've had a ton of entrepreneurs, obviously, on the show. I have never had an inventor, a football D3 player, and a current student all wrapped up into one. So that's a first on the Profit Express. It's truly an amazing story. I think the product is amazing. We're going to get into that. How you ended up here and your story and your journey is really quite amazing. And you were in that, that startup phase, which is super exciting. So again, thanks for being on board. So let's start with the product. What was the genesis of the gator skin? How did you come up with the idea?
Yeah, so about a year and a half ago now, my brother suffered a traumatic concussion in his junior season of college football, and he was playing in the ODAC Conference Championship game at Division III football, Washington Lee University, and he suffered a concussion in that game. He can't even remember the game at all. It's a moment lost in time for him. All he has is a photo of him celebrating with the rest of his team. The day is completely lost in his memory. I saw him go through what everyone's familiar with from the concussion perspective of that immediate symptoms of the memory loss and the headaches and all that sort of stuff. But he also had a year-long period of recovery that was a really difficult, long journey for him to get through, just to get back to where he was before the concussion. And seeing him go through that, having him constantly have to battle against that. It was a real driving force behind sitting down, trying to address the issue in the first place. And that's kind of what led me to this issue. And that's kind of where I began.
Wow. Okay. So I'm assuming you and your brother close. You both play football. He has a career-ending injury, 2021. Doesn't even remember the game and a year-long recovery.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate.
Wow.
I mean, I grew up watching him play football his whole life. I was blessed to have the opportunity to play with him when he was a senior. I was a freshman. That was an
Okay.
amazing experience. And
Older
I mean,
brother,
it's
right?
always
I
something
get it.
yeah, always something I'd love to do is just watch him play. He was an amazing football player, linebacker, really violent guy out on the field, and it just sucks to see him not be able to play the game anymore because of an injury that affected him so horribly. And I mean, what I did is I just kind of started thinking about concussions, how they occur.
Right.
Something my dad really taught me and has kind of imbued in me is a whole whiteboard approach, which is you just white sheet, start anew. Basically, don't try to build off of what already exists. Try to come up with something that doesn't exist in the first place. And that's what I did with concussions, and that's what led me to the gator skin and the idea for it.
Now I want to get to gator skin. We obviously will. How is your brother doing post injury?
Right now, he's actually doing amazingly. About a month and a half ago, he finished up a half Ironman triathlon. It was an amazing thing to see. He found his own new athletic pursuit, and I mean, crushed it. It's awesome. It's funny. He's still
Wow.
got a sunburn on his leg from from the triathlon he was running for so long in Texas. But
Wow. So it was a full Ironman he did.
it was half Ironman.
Oh, half Ironman, half Iron. Okay, so a little less contact. Good for him. Well, I'm glad he's doing well. So, all right. So it's called the gator skin. I attempted to describe it. I don't want to describe it. I want you to describe it for the viewers, for the listeners. What is the device? How does it work?
Yeah. So if you imagine a balaclava or a ski mask, but one that comes down, in addition to covering the head and neck, it also covers part of the shoulder, chest, and upper back. And it's
Mm-hmm.
meant for sports like football that have shoulder pads to be worn underneath the shoulder pads. But if you're going to wear it for something like skiing, where you also want to have that protection, there's a slightly different variation that has a strap system involved in it so that you can wear it without the use of the shoulder pads to anchor it down. And what it does is anytime you take a hit to the head,
Mm-hmm.
there's obviously energy and forces involved in that. And it takes that energy and one, similar to a helmet, it dissipates that energy. And while a helmet is kind of limited by the surface area and the size of the helmet, this increases that surface area, allows you to distribute the energy over a larger surface. But it also, and what's unique to it, is it utilizes that energy to essentially turn into a neck brace. So you get all the flexibility and the mobility of just wearing what's essentially feels like a normal garment. But when you take that hit and when you're at the biggest risk of injury and concussion, or any neck injury, actually,
Mm-hmm.
it turns into that neck brace and provides that protection that when you really want it, you're getting it.
Okay, wait. So this is very interesting. And so then it obviously has to have mobility and flexibility if a player's wearing it underneath their helmet and underneath their shoulder pads. So if I heard you right, at the point of impact, does the gator skin absorb that energy and then it has an impact on the material so it becomes more of like a brace? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Yeah. So quite literally, not only upon impact, but anytime your head accelerates past the normal movements, such as let's say you had a whiplash event or something like that, where your
Right,
head's
right.
not necessarily getting hit, but your head's moving at such a rate that you have the chance of injury. It's designed to utilize that movement and resist it. And like you described, basically becomes more rigid and the material itself changes its structure so that you're able to get that stability that you really want at that moment.
Wow. This is cooler than I thought it was. This is a pretty amazing design. So your brother had that unfortunate hit where he got that career-ending concussion. So he's your brother. You love him. You know you're the wheels start turning. You know how can, again, third generation inventor. What can I do to help the situation?
Yeah.
The so let me ask you then, the design process. You're a student in economics. This seems like there'd be a lot of science behind this. Am I right?
Yeah, so I mean, one of my major passions in all of high school was physics. I also do a lot of physics and mathematics stuff at my college, and something I'm doing alongside my economics degree. And I was applying a lot of those different concepts when I sat down to actually think about the issue. Obviously, did a bunch of independent research on my own just to delve in, learn as much as I can about the biological systems and how they interact, and really shifted towards more of a biomechanics approach to concussions
Really?
rather than just a biological one.
Now, did you have? Now, this is a patent pending product, right?
Correct.
So then you're designing it. Did you have to? I don't know what you share what you want to share or comfortable sharing. Is this? Did you have to enlist the help of other scientists, other designers? To what extent did you seek outside help in putting something like this together? Because it seems like it's a sophisticated product.
Yeah. So I had the initial idea and concept for the gator skin, and the first thing I did was go to my dad, who he himself is a very, very experienced entrepreneur and inventor. He has over 700 issued patent claims by himself, and immediately with him, we just started to talk about it, workshop it. I kind of piqued his interest with the initial concept, so he was
Wow.
really interested in just starting to work through it with me. And I mean, after I'd say about a month of just collaboration between the two of us working on the concept, we got in touch with a design firm to start actually building out the physical prototype of it. And from there, I mean, it took several months to hone that in, actually get it to a point that
Sure.
we liked. That we had a physical, actual prototype in our hands, actually December of last year, which was a really cool moment to see something go from the brain, the concept, to actually in hand. And the next month, we took it to the Virginia Tech lab, and that's where we tested it. And since then, we've been obviously continuing to iterate and work on it and improve it. And that's where a lot of the expert advice and insights from some of the foremost experts, medical experts, scientists, has really come into play as we've continued to refine it.
So, all right. So that was a huge advantage with your dad, again, as an inventor, second generation. Then, obviously, if your grandfather, I assume, was an inventor as well.
Yeah, my grandfather, he created MasterCard International, and he basically implemented the first private multi-packet switching network, which is the basis for MasterCard, Visa, and all the transactions you do with them. It's still in use today. Yeah.
Wow, man, it's good to see that you guys are not slackers in the Hogg family, man. There's one smarter and more successful than the next. Congratulations, that's awesome. But again, the huge benefit of having your dad to go to, at the infancy stage. So you get the idea. The accident happens in 21. The wheel starts spinning. Then I think you mentioned your dad said, "Hey, go to the whiteboard, start sketching things out." So from that stage, sketches to an actual working prototype you had this past December of 22. Did I get that right?
Correct. Yeah. I had the idea in the spring of 22, and over the next 8 to 9 months, we worked on it. And that's when we finally got the actual physical prototype.
That seems pretty fast. I mean, I'm not an inventor, but that still seems pretty fast considering, the kind of product.
Yeah.
Testing. Okay. So part of what you talk about, and it's a huge claim, it's a very important claim, is what I spoke about in the intro, that your testing has proven that the gator skin can help reduce the risk of concussions by 59%.
Mm-hmm.
So walk us through that process of testing, and how does it prove that? I'd find that very interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing to understand is that number, the concussion risk number, and that reduction is something that Virginia Tech has developed over, years and years of research. And what it is it's basically a predictor model of your risk
Mm-hmm.
of concussion. And the unfortunate reality is no two players are alike. There's no perfect fit. One player could take an identical hit to another, and he suffers a concussion, and the other guy's totally fine.
Yeah.
But what Virginia Tech has done is using a bunch of different accelerometer data from in-game actual impacts and the actual concussions that were diagnosed afterwards, they've come up with one way of predicting your chance of concussion. And what it's based on is there's the linear acceleration of the head, which is you can just imagine a straight line path.
Hmm.
And then there's also the rotational acceleration of the head, which is just how fast your head's spinning, basically.
Okay.
And what they've done is compared to some other folks who use either one or the other, that one might focus on linear, another person might focus on rotational. Virginia Tech has found that using both at the same time gives you the most accurate modeling and prediction of your risk of concussion. And what we did is we brought the gator skin to the Virginia Tech Helmet Lab. It's at their Center for Injury Prevention in Blacksburg.
Hmm.
And we brought the gator skin through the standard football helmet testing protocol. It's the same thing they use to rate every single college and high school football helmet that you see in use. It's something that I was intimately familiar with from my
Hmm.
time in high school, college, just looking at the ratings to see what's the best helmet out there, what's the safest thing that I can wear.
Sure.
And we went to them, got in touch with them as soon as we actually had the physical prototype. And we brought it through their standard protocol, which is, I mean, imagine a crash test dummy head and it's a pendulum based setup. And what it does is you basically hit it a ton of times at a couple different locations, several different impact energies, ranging from a very low level hit that you might see very commonly in football to a more extreme collision that, while less frequent, still does occur in football games. And
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, we basically measured all the accelerations of that. We modeled the concussion risk using their actual models, and it's a very simple delta analysis that we did. We tested it with just a football helmet, and then we added on the gator skin underneath that football helmet and hit it again. And just everything we've done is a comparison between the two, and that's where that number comes from.
So it would seem like the Virginia Tech model is I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, is like the most exhaustive or the most complete testing for this protocol.
Yeah, they're one of the premier experts in all of like helmet testing, and I mean, obviously, there's different groups that do different tests, but
Sure.
they're very well respected, and this is an integral part of their actual testing and all the ratings you see online.
So earlier I mentioned that Will Smith movie Concussion from 2015. And it's kind of ironic that he ends up giving Chris Rock a concussion, but I mean that's another story. So what happens then is that movie sheds all sorts of light on concussions, primarily in the NFL, because I believe it was, the star of that movie had done an autopsy on one of the NFL players. I think it was a Pittsburgh Steeler. Just seeing what had happened to the brain. So, given that, the NFL has made some changes to the rules, to help, minimize the collisions and slow them down, et cetera. A lot has happened since 2015. The conversation, although it seems like it might have died down a bit, perhaps. I mean, I know there's less kids getting into football, at the Pop Warner level and all of that. But so here's the question for you, Carter. What else has been done from an equipment perspective? So you have your device, the Gator Skin. Has there been a lot done to the helmet since 2015?
Yeah, so helmets, if you look at all the different types of helmets that have come out over the last decade, even not only the last 8 years, but they've continued to evolve and just improve over and over. There's also new approaches, such as what Visus is doing with the trench helmet, and they also have a quarterback helmet, if I'm not mistaken, coming out this year.
Mm-hmm.
That they're
Mm-hmm.
getting into dialing into position-specific stuff. So helmet technology
Okay.
continues to improve and evolve. It's been amazing in that regard, constantly improving there. But I mean, there's only so much you can do with a helmet because of the fact that you're limited by the surface area and how much of your body it's actually covering. In addition, helmets only function if you take a hit to the head. And that's something that thankfully Gator Skin's able to help protect against. If you take a hit to the body, it still does activate and give the benefits that, unlike a helmet, you don't normally see.
Okay, so this is fascinating, man. So All right, so they've made improvements to helmets. Like you said, there's even like now positional helmets, whether it's, a running back or quarterback, whatever. Um, so we've all seen when we've watched, college football and the NFL on the weekends, we've seen some receiver get that shot, even if it's into the midsection and their head snaps because of the force of the shot they took from the defensive player. But again, I just want to make sure I understand this. So, and that was a great point. The helmet technology is limited to the surface of the helmet, but with the gator skin, because of the force that you take on impact, even though the head wasn't hit, it activates the gator skin and again has that kind of protective element to it.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Completely correct. Yeah.
Wow,
It's designed to help resist those motions of the head. So it kicks in based on the acceleration of the head, not necessarily the force to the head.
So, okay, I don't know if the numbers are out. How does gator skin compare to helmets as far as effectiveness to reduce concussion risk?
Yeah, so gator skin is meant to bolster the effectiveness of a helmet. It's a little bit more difficult to test some of those in-game whiplash collisions. Most of the stuff we've focused on is that direct hit to the head. But it's meant to improve the technology of helmets and be an added layer of protection, another alternative for players. Let's say you're in the best helmet, there's obviously always going to be a risk of concussion. There's no way to completely eliminate it.
Sure.
But it's another thing you can turn to help improve the helmet and just get an extra layer of protection.
So now, again, you guys have come quite a long distance in a short period of time. The prototype is out there. It's been tested thoroughly by Virginia Tech, it sounds like. So has it been used, in live situations, not games necessarily, but as part of testing? Or is it all like, crash test dummy kind of stuff?
So far, it's just been like the crash test dummy kind of stuff. This fall, we're starting our pilot program, getting it on actual players in game situations in practice,
Right.
so that we can start to collect that actual human data and see the benefits of the product in an actual game setting.
So now let me ask you, because again, you're a football player, so you're intimately familiar with the equipment you wear and being, in a live game. There's mobility, there's comfort. Will there be a level of sacrifice to the player, when they're using gator skin and they're out in a live game? Does it slow them down, mobility, what have you?
Yeah. So first and foremost in the development process in our minds, myself being a football player, my dad being a former collegiate athlete, both football and lacrosse. Basically, every single person on our actual leadership team has played collegiate sports in some fashion.
Okay.
And first and foremost was wearability, because ultimately, if something's not wearable for somebody, they're not going to get the benefits of it, and they're never actually going to put it on. So we've done several things to keep that in mind. Obviously, there's the flexibility of it, so they don't have the limitations to range of motion. You're able to move around completely fine. Speaking from experience, neck braces are obviously very helpful to help protect against neck injuries, but I've never wanted to wear one because I play defensive back. It's very difficult to look around with one on. So that was one of the main focuses. We've also, anytime you put something on, obviously there's going to be a little bit heat trapped. So what we've done to address that is we've perforated the entire device. There's a bunch of holes in it, basically, that heat's able to escape through. And what we've also done is we've added in pockets along the back of the neck and upper back that you're able to put cooling gel packs into to lower the body temperature of the player. And they're easily accessible from the outside. You're not going to take off all of your equipment. You're going to be able to just swap them out mid-game if for some reason they do basically run out of their coolness and they kind of heat up a little bit. We've also made it so that it's able to be taken on and off like a hood without taking everything off. So if you take your helmet off and you're on the sideline, you don't want to be wearing it on the sideline. You can just undo it a little bit, pop it off just like a normal balaclava or shiesty, and not have to deal with it on the sideline. We've also heavily perforated over the ears so that it's not going to affect your hearing or your senses in any way.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
cut so that it's not in your eye line whatsoever. So, I mean, we've been really focused on keeping wearability top and like first and foremost in our minds, right next to safety and its actual performance.
So yeah, so it doesn't seem like it would be too awkward or clumsy. Again, you've talked about a lot of wearability factors. Again, you being a football player, you can certainly understand that. So, man, this is an amazing. This product is more amazing than I thought it would be. I mean, just based off of your description, man. And so is this your first invention?
I'd say of this form, yeah. I mean, when I was a little kid, I'd tinker around with a bunch of different things, but none of those are really useful in any way.
Well, hey, it has to start somewhere. But listen, I'm telling you, if this is your first go around, man, you're doing one hell of a job so far, my friend. All right, so again, this is the Profit Express. So there are lots of products out there that when we hear them or hear about them, and we seems like, oh wow, it seems like a cool product, right? But at the end of the day, if you just bottom line it on the Profit Express, it comes down to, are you moving units? Now I know you're in the startup phase. So, kind of give us, because I know I'm speaking for the listener right now. They want to know what's going on with this because it's piquing a lot of people's curiosity. So, production, where are you at? Where have you gotten interest from? There's all sorts of football from Pop Warner, high school, college, obviously NFL. What has the reception to the product been in the marketplace?
Yeah, so it's been very, very positive. This fall, specifically for our pilot program, we have several high school and college football teams wearing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been very positive. Uh, all of the feedback we've been getting is from parents and things like that. It's been awesome from a youth perspective. That's going to be
Mm-hmm.
a very important focus of ours moving forward. We've also spoken with a number of different professional organizations, be it football or hockey or skiing, even actually,
Mm-hmm.
to continue to move that process along. Obviously, at the professional level, the actual process of getting something implemented takes a lot longer. So we're
Sure.
just continuing to move that along those discussions, work through their natural avenues so that we can do things the right way. But from a high school and college perspective, we're already getting teams in it, and we continue to hope to just get it on more and more people. It's available for pre-order right now for anyone who wants to place an order, and we'll start shipping those out very soon, hopefully.
So, and while we're on the topic, can you give the website while we're talking about it?
Gatorskin.com. It's G8R skin.com.
And that's G8 as in the number 8, right?
Correct. Yes. The number.
Okay. Now I have a nephew who is a defensive lineman. He's already gotten a concussion. He's going to be a senior in high school. So we can certainly feel the pinch of this as well. Basically, anybody in football understands it. But interested to get your take, because again, you're still currently in the sport. Where he plays locally, we're here on Long Island. They've actually had to combine two local high schools in the same district because they didn't have enough kids to put a roster together. And unfortunately, it varies from town to town. Some towns just have, more kids signing up. But that's definitely been a problem that, I've witnessed firsthand with my nephew, where kids aren't signing up for the sport. Is this something that you
Yeah.
think might help, ease parents' worries?
Yeah. So I grew up in New York, born and raised there. I
Okay.
lived in both Upper West Side of Manhattan. I also lived in Westchester. Went to school in Tarrytown, and this is something
Hmm.
I'm intimately familiar with in terms of exactly what you're talking about. My high school team there, before I moved, I went there through my sophomore year. The team, when my brother, we went to the same school when he was a freshman. I think they had over like 55 kids or something like that.
Right.
And I mean, last year, even, I think they were down to 17 freshmen through senior year. And it's not a
Whoa.
very big school. It's about 400 total in the upper school. But that said, that's very, very low participation. For comparison, my school in Texas, same size school, had 100 plus kids freshman through senior year. So, I mean, it's a phenomenon I'm very familiar with. And that was
Yeah.
another major motivation for the invention of this product, because I mean, I've had such an amazing experience with football, with all the teammates, with the sport itself,
Yeah.
with all the coaches, the lessons that I've learned through it,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing people not sign up out of fear for injury, and also parents just not letting their kids play because of that fear that their child is going to get injured.
Sure.
That's hopefully something we can help alleviate to a certain degree, because we're going to help limit those risks to the actual player, to those kids, and we can hopefully get those numbers a little bit up.
So let me ask you this. If we look at the journey of an entrepreneur, of which you are now one, my friend, and you realize that because you have an advisory board. I mean, you're no joke, and you're still in college, which is incredible. Entrepreneurs, being an entrepreneur, being an inventor, because there's lots of entrepreneurs that aren't inventors. You're both. It could be a lonely, challenging life, and a lot of times, we have to deal with the naysayers. People, especially inventing a product, like, oh, you're crazy, you're nuts, this isn't going to work. Now, you've already told me how supportive your dad was. Again, he's an inventor. Having your dad sound like it's a great asset. Have you had to deal with naysayers and negativity on this journey so far?
Yeah, so every time we start up a discussion with any of these different organizations that we've spoken to, a number of them have a certain resistance, or they don't believe necessarily what you're claiming, because, I mean, unfortunately, there are products out there that don't actually do what they say they do, or they misrepresent what they're actually doing with the data and all of that.
Right.
And I mean, thankfully, after the presentation that we give to them, all of their minds change, and they've been very, very positive afterwards. After we've walked them through all of the testing we did, go very in depth with actual numbers, and show them exactly what we did. An open book in that regard to all of our business partners, and sharing everything that we have from a data perspective.
Well, that's good. You're being tested out there, and you're rising to the occasion. So let me ask. Well, I'll make more of a statement than it is a question, and it might sound like a dumb statement, I guess. But so when I was preparing for the show and I got your background information, and now I've learned more about the project just since we're talking, obviously. So here's the dumb question: do you realize how freaking huge this can be? Have you taken a step back and said, wow, if this thing does what we think it can do, I mean, and it's not a one-trick pony. You've got other equipment. You've got other sports. I mean, think of the impact. Have you ever just pinched yourself? I mean, this sounds incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's been truly unbelievable in that respect. I mean, sometimes I just get lost in the work and stuff like that. But
Right.
anytime I have a moment to breathe and really think about it, it's astounding. It's truly a blessing in that regard. And we really hope we can do a lot of good with these products, but specifically with gator skin, and stop people from having to go through the terrible experiences that I've seen with my brother and many other friends and players that I've actually played with.
Right. Now, just listen, promise me one thing. So when the NFL has your product, throughout all the teams, that, you'll still come on the Profit Express, okay? Just don't get too big for yourself, right? All right, so here's another question. Have you thought, because I've had Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank on the show twice, is this a Shark Tank pitch product? Have you thought about that yet?
I would say no, simply because, I mean, thankfully we've been able to self-fund this thus far, and don't necessarily need that specific thing. I don't want to waste the Sharks' time in that regard. But
I love it.
We have an amazing group of people on the advisory board, and so many connections through them and through my dad and everything like that, to be able to move this along and get it to a point that we can provide it to as many people who want it.
Awesome. All right, so you don't need Mark Cuban's money. That's awesome. Then you could keep the percentages. That is fantastic. Wow, listen, this has been a great conversation. It really has. Today's guest, Carter Hogg, he's the inventor of the gator skin, which is just an amazing, piece of equipment to help reduce the risk of concussions by 59%. And listen, Carter, man, you've been a real pleasure to speak with today. I mean, you're a football player, you're a current student, and you're third generation inventor. As cool as your product is, your story is equally as amazing. It really is.
Awesome. Really appreciate the opportunity to come on here and speak with you. It's been a wonderful time.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much. And again, one more time, people want to follow you, whether on social, your website, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, so our website, again, is gatorskin.com, G8, the number, rskin.com. And then we have Twitter and Instagram handles at gatorskin, spelled the same way.
Awesome. Carter, thanks so much for being on board. This will not be the last time myself or my show hears from you. I can assure you that. Much success, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
And this is the Profit Express. And remember to tune in each and every Wednesday as awesome shows like the one I just had with Carter Hogg, again, the inventor of gator skin. Follow us online. Hit the subscribe button. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. And until next time, let's continue to win the battle for business. It's the Profit Express.